All right. I think I got this. It says I am live. This is cool. All right. So this is Thesia, and this is This Grandma's Life. And this is my new podcast that I'm trying to work out how to do. And you can always just talk. Talking's easy. For some people, I guess it's not too easy, but for me, it's easy to talk. But all the stuff behind talking, like you can do a podcast. Fine, you can do a podcast. You got something to talk about, but do you know how to set up StreamYard? Do you know how to hook it up to some sort of podcasting program? Can you do all that? Like, no, but I'll figure it out as I go. I have no problem with that. Yeah, whatever. Apparently, my last week when I tried to do a live stream, my computer was off by an hour. So when I tried to go on at what I thought was 7 o'clock, my computer thought it was 6 o'clock and it told me I was early. So I believe I'm actually live streaming now. So if anybody's out there, I don't know, let me know that you can hear me and that this is going to be on, that I am actually live streaming. People out there in the world can hear it. It is kind of interesting because we get used to doing things and not having to think about it. We're kind of, it's like the old saying, you know how to turn on a light switch, but you don't know. Most of us don't really understand how all that electricity part. I mean, do you really understand how the electricity works and how it works into the light switch that there's a light or whatever it's doing? And most of the time we don't care because the light's on, so we don't care. And that's kind of what I've been kind of dealing with here with doing a podcast. I'm hoping, now I'm still hoping to be doing 2 or 3 a week. I'm only done one this last week, and I'm not going to be real consistent with my times because I've got a 16-year-old granddaughter that basketball season's about to start up. We just finished softball season. We go to church on Wednesday night, so I've always got something going on, but I'm hoping that on nights that I don't have something going on, I can be here in front of you and doing some talking about this grandma's life. Um, my quote of the day is focusing on ourselves will never reveal our life's purpose by Rick Warren. And that's kind of funny. That kind of struck me because when you are trying to prepare what you want to say for something like a podcast, when you're trying to get your stuff out there in the world, are you focused on yourself, or are you focused on what somebody else might need to hear or want to hear, or are you just focusing what's going on around you? Where is your focus? So, like I said, focusing on ourselves will never reveal our life's purpose. Rick Warren. What do you think? How do you feel about that particular quote? I had a thought and I lost it, but we'll get it back. Farm happenings. I finally got the weed cloth laid, and it is, the ground's hard though. We did finally get a quarter-inch of rain, but we're so far behind on rain. Usually by the end of the year, and I don't remember if I told you guys this before, we usually average about 44 inches of rain per year, and it's mid-October right now. And so far for the entire year, we've gotten 27 inches of rain. So we're way below where we should be, even if we are going into what might be considered the rainy period. That's a pretty bad deficit. So it took me a while to get the staples put in and get that done. I remember what I was going to talk about now. I worked real hard today to try to figure out how to get the glare off my glasses. So that if you are on the live stream and you're watching this in video, I don't want you to have to look at to the glasses. And I got it figured out. But then they changed it again where I was trying to reset it because I have to have the light up so I can see the monitor. But then I had some computer issues today, so I was trying to booting it and stuff, and the setting to turn the monitor down, the lights down on the monitor, went away again. So I couldn't turn it down. So that was a little frustrating, but I guess I'll get there. But that was the thought that I had, and I couldn't remember, which is kind of dumb because every time I look up at the monitor, I see two big old white glary things right staring at me. Oh well. Um, I can't remember what I was doing one night. I was doing something, and I come home, and Tom goes, "Oscar, my new boar, uh, there's no electricity on his fence." I was like, "Oh man!" He kept getting out, and so I can't. Finally, he got sleepy, went to bed and stuff. But we ended up the next morning. We switched out the charger. We found that the charger says it was charging, and we were hooking it up, but there was nothing going from between the charger and the fence. So I'm thinking what it looks like is that Oscar bit the wire, and we've got a broken wire. So I spent one day looking for a wire, and then I just talked to my husband, and he hasn't even checked in because he told me he could find a wire, and he hasn't even looked yet. And so we moved the charger that works over to where Oscar is because obviously he thinks he can get out and has been getting out. My girls, Waddles and Daisy, they haven't been getting out. They haven't had electricity on their electric fence for 2 or 3 days now, and so far they're staying in. But I don't want to push it. I want to make sure they have electric net fencing too. But I have to admit they are close together. The pigs are close together. That, and it seems like Oscar has mellowed out some. I'm considering putting them back together in one paddock again. Part of the reason is um the home, the little shed that I built that Oscar's in. It was a tote. What do they call them? The IBC totes, and it worked pretty good last winter. And we just cut out a door on the side and we covered it with tarp. Well, the tarp was fraying, and then when I rolled the IBC, especially apparently after icing last winter and summer sun, it's falling apart. And so he needs a new house, or I may just have to put him with the girls here pretty soon. We'll have to see if he can behave himself, and at least where they can get along okay. I mean, I need to build another hut, and they seem to like this A-frame hut that I built here a few months ago, but I've only got the one built, and so I need to get them done. My goodness, it got way below freezing earlier this week. It's been the 80s today, but 3 days ago, 2 days ago, I was breaking ice for all my birds and everything, and even for the pigs. And so I had to get some straw, and I put it in both of their houses, and they really like that. You know how pigs are when they get in the straw, they all huddle up, and it helps keep them warm. But yeah, we had 2, maybe 3 nights in a row that it got down way well below freezing. I think one night, I think the first night it got to um, 26 degrees, and the second night it got down to 21. So yeah, that's way too early here for that kind of cold. And I'm glad for the 80s again, but man, I hope that's not a indication of how our winter's going to be. You always think about that every fall. I do. You always speculate. Well, what kind of winter are we going to have? And you could try to. I try to look at what's going on with nature. Because those of you who had anything to do with Laura Ingalls Wilder's, you might remember the book The Long Winter. They were noticing things in nature that indicate that it was going to be a particularly long winter, like how some of the muskrats were doing something different, and I can't remember. It's been lots and lots of years since I read that, but the book itself, The Long Winter, has stuck with me over the years, and so I always try to observe things to see if I can determine how the winter's going to be. But face it, we're in Oklahoma. We can't really discern. Like I said, it was way below freezing 2 days ago, and now it's in the 80s again. And after this weekend, it's going to be, I think, the highs in the 50s again. So you just never know how it's going to be in Oklahoma. So I don't know. We'll get there. Now I'm wondering, it's saying that I've been live for over an hour, and I don't think that's accurate. Oh my goodness. That means I still don't have my timeline straight. Shoot. Okay. Well, Alicia's recording, and I'll get something on there and figure it out. I don't know what I'm doing wrong because I should be only 8 minutes in. I've got a lot to learn, guys. I'm sorry. Okay. My three things. My three things for today were piloxing class and do the skirting frame, because you all know that I'm still trying to work on that. Man, it's been a busy week. I haven't been able to work on it. And the podcast today. Well, I woke up this morning having some asthma issues, and I didn't even go to the gym. And if you guys know me, you know I love the gym. And so, but I didn't even do that today. And because of the asthma, I just didn't feel good, and I didn't go out and work outside too much either. But I did do the podcast. But what I did today uh, is what I was dealing with, like for my story of the day. Oh my gosh. I knew that Kinsey started basketball. They had their first scrimmage last night. And it's kind of cool in some ways because A team came down from Quapaw, and I can't remember where they are. They're pretty far away, though, I believe. And then another team came all the way up from, I think it's pronounced Achille, like Achille, like Achilles tendon. But they're way down there in southern Oklahoma on the other side of Durant. They drove up, which is like a 4-hour drive. And they came up. And what I'm understanding is the Quapaw coach and the Achille coach are brothers, and they decided to meet here in Foyle, and we had a scrimmage. Oh my gosh. Basically, I spent the entire day taking footage off of the camera, and I write down what's happening, on each frame, not a frame, but every little clip that I do, I write down on this so I can refer to it later. And I thought the girls had played like 8 games, and it ends up they played 10, not full games. They played, what they did is they had 10-minute quarters essentially. So they did 10 minutes of uh playing against Quapaw, and Quapaw is apparently a relatively big school, and they're a lot bigger than Foyle, and they whip us frequently. And so like Foyle played Quapaw, and then Foyle also, then the next 10 minutes they played Achille, and then Achille and Quapaw would play each other, and they did this rotation around. And so the girls last night played uh 10 10-minute games, and yeah, they were so whipped. Poor Kenzie, she was so whipped, and I felt sorry for her. But I record everything, and that's what I spent most of the day. I just this evening got the last of the footage off my cameras and the onto the laptop, and um set up and record. Sorry, I'm thinking of something else at the same time, and label so I know what's on them. Actually, I have to admit, I'm kind of bummed at saying that I'm off. See, last week it's saying that I was an hour early. Now it's telling me I'm an hour late. What the heck? I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. I guess I'll figure it out. But it's frustrating. I won't lie. Okay. I'm reading, or I just finished reading this story. Now, this is a book called Alive, the story of the Andes survivors. And this was kind of I would read about, well, this is not literally a novel, but this is something like along the novel type thing. This is a true story about some boys and a few other people too. It was a soccer team that were going on to the way to flying on their way to Chile, flying over the Andes Mountains to go play into Chile, I think from Paraguay. I can't remember which now. And they crashed in the mountains, and they were way up, like well over 7,000 feet up in the mountains. And essentially, because they were so high, nobody could find them. It was a light colored airplane. It had crashed in the snow, and they even and every time an airplane would fly that height and higher in the mountains back in the 70s, they would lose an engine. So the people who were searching for them were they would try to get up there and find them, and then they'd lose an engine and they have to go and land again. So these poor guys and some of the women and stuff were stuck in the Andes Mountains for 71 days, I believe. And there was no food. I mean, there was some chocolate, there was a little bit of wine, there was a little bit of things, whether that uh, the part of the airplane that had food in it had broken off way up the mountains, and they didn't even. They had a lot of injuries. They had several deaths, but they ended up. And this may be macabre, but basically they ended up when people, and it was very cold at night too. So with the bodies that died, they froze, and had made makeshift knives out of things, and they ended up having to be cannibals to stay alive. And some of them struggled with it enough that actually some of them did die because they refused to eat human flesh, and others ended up, well, the ones that survived did end up eating human flesh because there was just nothing else for them to eat. But it was kind of interesting when they all struggled with it. They didn't want to. I mean, these were their friends. Some of them were family. Um, they tried to make it where they couldn't see their faces and stuff, but sometimes you just couldn't, it couldn't be helped and everything. But they just knowing that they were eating another human was very difficult for them. And then whenever they were rescued, people were asking, well, how did you survive? Oh, we had some chocolate, but then it ended up coming out that that yes, they had cannibalized these people. And one of them, and uh, I think his name was Algorta, he, in the beginning, when they really needed to make the decision on whether they were needed going to cannibalize or not, he made it uh, a comparison that made it a little easier for some of them to do this to survive. And he brought it back out at the end of this book too. And I want to read you a little section of it. Okay. Algorta says uh, his was centered around the precept that God is love. After 70 days in the wilderness and the Andes, he did not believe in any the less of God was love, but had taught him that the love of God was not something to count for on survival. No angels had come down from heaven to help them. It was their own qualities of courage and endurance which had seen them through. Suffering and privation had taught them how frivolous their lives had been. And I don't think that every member of every family confronted the knowledge that their husbands, mothers, and sons were not only dead, but might have been eating. And that was from the survivors, or the families of the survivors. But that was not what I was going to read to you. I'm really up on it too. But what he was saying in one thing, if I can find it. Okay, and then Inciarte, Mangino, and Menthol felt that certain that they were the beneficiaries of a miracle. Delgado considered that have to have lived through the accident, the avalanche, and the weeks that followed would be described to the hand of God, but that the expedition was more a manifestation of human courage. Canesse, Servino, Paez, Sabella, and Harley all felt that God had played a fundamental role in their survival, and that he had been there, present on the mountain. On the other hand, Fernandez, Fito, Eduardo Strauch, and he was a German, and Vincentian were more inclined to believe in all modesty that their survival and escape could be ascribed to their own efforts. Certainly prayer had assisted them. It had been a bond which held them together and a safeguard against despair. But if they had relied on prayer alone, they would still be up on the mountain. Perhaps the greatest value of the grace of God had been to preserve their sanity. I think that's interesting too, because yes, I do believe that God has a lot to say about um, believing that God can help you and all that stuff. But I also believe that yes, you pray, but you do after you pray. And I think that's what those guys were trying to say. They do believe that God helped them, and they did pray and stuff, but they also believe that they needed to get off their butts and get into um get it to work and do what they needed to get them off the mountain. Here's another passage here. When one awakes in the morning and the silence of the mountains and sees all this around the snow-capped peaks, it is majestic, sensational, and something frightening. One feels alone, alone in the world, but for the presence of God. For I can assure you that God is there. We all felt it inside ourselves, and not because we were the kind of pious youths who were always praying all day long, even though we had a religious education. Not at all. But there one feels the presence of God. One feels above all what is called the hand of God and allows himself to be guided by it. And when the moment came when we did not have any more food or anything of that kind, we thought to ourselves that if Jesus at his Last Supper had shared his flesh and blood with his apostles, then this was a sign to us that we should do the same, take the flesh and the blood as an intimate communion between us all. It was this that helped us survive, and how we do not want this, which for us was something intimate. Intimate to be hackneyed or touched or anything like that. In a foreign country, we tried to approach a subject in an elevated spirit as possible, and now we will tell you, our fellow countrymen, exactly as it was. Now, that was the passage I was looking for. So basically, what they were saying is because they felt that Jesus had sacrificed himself, that their friends would sacrifice themselves, had sacrificed themselves for the survivors. How do you feel about that? What do you think? I think that was kind of deep and kind of interesting. I'm really grateful that I have never been in that situation. Um, uh, Probably never will be. But it is interesting to put yourself in that place though, to see if what would you do? How would you completely refuse and die, or would you finally eat some of your friends and survive? That's kind of hard to deal with. Okay. What I'm reading now is, I don't know, some of you know that Amy Dingman, under the pen name of Shay Ray Stevens, has got a new book out. Man, as soon as I could order it, I was there, because I read her other one, The Me You See, and what she does with characters is amazing. So I was really ready for this one. So I'm right in the middle of her book. But like I said, I only do novels and stuff about 30 minutes a night. But I've gotten started The Opposite of Gray. That's her new book, and I am in the middle of that one. I'm really enjoying it. My income producing activity of the day, Fold Card. We're all talking about the Fold Card. Fold Card is a prepaid debit card that every time you use it, you earn some Satoshis already anyway. And you can also spin. You can either take the 1% Satoshis, or you can spin and get something a little bit higher, or, just take your chances on it and stuff. And so you're earning Satoshis every time you use it. If you use my link, then you can do the you can earn Satoshis from me. And I just realized I am so lame, guys. I just realized I haven't got a link. I'll get the link on that and put it out for you. So for the do the fold card with the Satoshis, and see what we can get done there. It's hard to have income producing activity if you don't provide what somebody needs for it. So that is that, but the fold card is really cool. So I hope you can do that. All right, now, like I said, the last time I did this, I stole this from Brian Alexovich, the creator of the day. And guess what? He is my creator of the day. And I listened to him on the Lots Project and learning stuff from him. I think he does a podcast like every weekday morning or something. They're living in a camper now. They just sold their home in Minnesota, and they're traveling in different parts of the country. I think they just, last I heard, they had landed in Mississippi, I believe it is, which they're kind of aggravated about because the cold kind of followed them down there. But it'll warm back. I bet it's already warmed back up. But they are doing some traveling, and seeing what they want to do, trying to live outside the system. And his beautiful wife Corey. I haven't checked into too much. I know they have 3 Saint Bernard dogs, and so they she has a Instagram that deals with the Saint Bernards, and that she's into barefoot, and she takes pictures of herself to being barefooted all the time. And, I used to be, I grew up running barefoot, but I can't do it anymore. Whenever I was a meter reader. Here's a story. I was a meter reader when I first moved back from California and moved to Tulsa, and I loved that job. I really did. You get to walk around and talk to people, and um, well, visit dogs. I enjoyed that. And we walked 7 to 10 miles a day. My problem was that what we had to wear was steel shanked boots, which means that the bottoms of the boots were stiff. And they did that so that because of the train we were on, some of the places that we walked were pretty rugged, like, nails and rocks and, sharp metal and stuff. And so we had to wear the steel shanked boots. Well, because it doesn't let your foot flex, I did severe damage to my feet. In fact, I have 20% permanent disability on my feet because of what I've having to wear those boots, and I don't go anywhere barefooted. Well, sometimes I do in the middle of the night going to the bathroom, but other than that, I always have to have shoes on. Otherwise, my feet hurt real bad. And that, so watching her go everywhere being barefoot, I guess Brian's kind of doing that too. He's learning how to, what do they call it, grounding. They're grounding and putting their feet on the ground, on the ground, and I guess feeling the earth. And another thing that Brian's doing lately, and I've noticed that a couple other people are following his suit, is they're going around and checking out grave sites and taking videos of stuff of interesting tombstones, and that is interesting. Uh, I like doing it sometimes. My youngest son does not. He doesn't want to have anything to do with graveyards. In fact, he always makes sure when he has to go to a graveyard, he makes sure he's knowing where he's stepping, because he has kind of a thing about he didn't want to accidentally step on a grave at all. And so, but still, Brian is going around taking videos and pictures of different tombstones, and I've noticed that Two Chicks Homestead has started doing that too. But there's some, so Brian is and oh, and he's also does a Lightning for Liberty podcast uh with another man. Some I can't remember something the Butcher, and they talk about lightning and the Lightning Network and how to get everything set up for it. And I think I listened to one or two podcasts of it. I got a lot to learn. Obviously, I've got a lot to learn, but those are my he's my creator of the day. And I'm sorry, Brian. I don't mean to be so lame. I will get better. I promise I will. So let me see. I guess that's about all I've got for tonight. Because I'm kind of frustrated. I don't understand. I thought I had all this stuff worked out. Was going to and had it where I could do um a live stream, and now I can't do it again. So maybe guys, some of you guys will catch me later. I don't know. Anyway, okay, I've got 3 YouTube channels now. I've got the Ellis Family Farms, and that is my journey and out here on our acreage, trying to move us forward in life. We lived in a camper for 7.5 years, and now I'm trying to remodel a $2,500 mobile home that we got really used, obviously. And in my life here on the farm, I also have another YouTube channel called Farm Animal Live. There's no words. There's no storyline. It's just I put a camera in, and lately what I've got is some earlier footage of some chicks. I think the one I got coming, I'm editing on now is my layered chicks, or the ones that are going to be my layer birds next spring, and it's showing them in the brooder. And that's what I do. I just stick the camera in the brooder and let them do their thing. And I have to admit, I mean, not only is it a little bit soothing, but every once in a while, when little bitty animals like that, always sound like something will zip right across there, like they jump up and run across there, or somebody stretches a leg or something. I don't know. Or about the time one of them falls asleep, another one runs over him and wakes him up. So there's something going on all the time there, and that's kind of nice. And then, of course, we've got this one is this grandma's life. And I'm sorry, I don't know what I did wrong, but I guess we'll get there. All right, guys. Oh, and I'm on Instagram, Thecia Ellis. I think it's Thecia Dayhoff Ellis. Facebook, MeWe, all of the regular ones, I'm sure, under some form of Thecia Ellis. So, all right, guys, I will work on this some more, see if I can get back and do this right. Until then, you know what? Don't be intimidated. Get up off the couch. Do what you got to do. And, even as lame as I am tonight, lame as I have been with this podcast, I'm living, guys. I'm living until I die. I am making the most of my dash. I am making the most of that dash that's between the date that I was born and the date that I die. And I don't know when it is I'm going to die, but have determined that I'm going to make the best of. Oh, yeah, we'll make a mess of it too. But I'm determined I'm going to make the best of what I can of my life. So God bless, guys. I'll see you next time. Hopefully, if I can get my act together. Good night.